I feel like virtual assistants are the biggest thing in the agency world that people are talking about when it comes to scaling. I can just get a VA to do that. We've all been there, and we want to fill you in on the key differences that we see between a virtual assistant and a client account manager. They're both different, and sometimes both are needed to scale. In today's episode, we'll fill you in on our experience hiring a virtual assistant, what we learned, and what our recommendations are for your agency.
Welcome to the Happy Clients Podcast, brought to you by Dot & Company, the world's best and only team of client account managers for digital marketing agencies. Whether you're a virtual assistant, an agency owner, or a client-facing account manager, we all deal with clients. Lucky for you, client management is what we do best. Now, let's dig in, chat cam life, and have some fun along the way. Cheers to happy clients.
Awesome. I'm so excited to talk about virtual assistant versus client account management today. It's just such a fine line that people get confused, and it's so great to kind of dive in and give value to both sides of the story, right? Both sides, meaning virtual assistants definitely bring a lot to any digital marketing agency. And of course, so does client account management. So diving in, we're excited to tell everybody about the ways you can hire each and why you should do so. So let's dig in and give the people what they want to know. Do you hire a VA or not?
So to kind of start off, a virtual assistant versus an account manager. So the main difference in our eyes is a client account manager is internal and external facing and is highly trained in digital marketing, where a virtual assistant generally stays internal to the agency, doing administrative tasks, communicating, sometimes with internal team members, but more so internal. So that's kind of a key difference that I see.
Yeah, we definitely want the client account manager to know what's going on in terms of digital marketing strategy, know the ads, know what's going on with agency owners and media buyers. And of course, virtual assistants who are living in this world will know that as well. Just for client account managers, it's kind of the next level in terms of interacting with clients and media buyers and being more of an external player as well as an internal. So our experience with VAs is definitely something that we see as an internal team member. They take care of things like billing, invoicing, a lot of the admin work that can take up agency owners day to day. So if the client account manager's objective is to improve that day to day of a digital marketing agency owner, a VA does that as well, just in terms of those tasks that need to be done and are so important and can often take a back burner. So billing, contracts, hiring, social media, some community development, like anything that agency owners typically do, but isn't, I guess, client specific. So our experiences with VA is very internal, where client account management definitely is an external piece to the puzzle. They're communicating regularly with people outside of the agency.
Mm-hmm. So I think it's important to also note that personally in our agency, we don't have a VA. All of the administrative tasks are delegated throughout our team, and it just seems to work. We've tried hiring VAs. It just wasn't something that we needed. So just a little bit of context there. I want to touch on what the cost looks like to hire a VA versus an account manager. And it really kind of differs, I find, throughout the industry. So most VAs work on an hourly rate where you are paying them per hour to do a certain amount of tasks. Whereas personally, how we frame our pricing for account managers is on a client by client basis rather than hourly, because we find that if we build efficiencies on some accounts, we can take on more work versus having to just use more hours for the agency to increase invoicing. So I find that the key difference is just VAs are more hourly, sometimes full-time. Most times we see hourly. And then client account managers, generally from our perspective, are either salaried employees or per client pricing.
Yeah, I think to that point too, Taylor, is that VAs have very specific tasks, right? They can check boxes. They are very task oriented, where a client account manager needs to be more around the clock, right? We don't know when clients will come in hot. We don't know when clients are going to need maybe some extra coaching or nurturing along the way. So it's important to see that hourly versus salary as roles or time dedicated to the agency. Client account managers are part of the agency in terms of they're there, they're interacting with clients, they're interacting with media buyers, they're there if something goes wrong. And VAs can definitely task out what needs to be done. They usually know when it's coming up, they can schedule things. It's a little more detailed in terms of tasks and checking things off the list.
Yeah, totally. So, Katie, let's finish off helping our listeners, whether they're an agency owner or a freelancer, or maybe a client account manager in an agency. What's the best hiring decision for an agency right now? What are some of the things that people can think about in terms of hiring?
Yeah, like Taylor, did we not learn this lesson 100 times over? Hiring can be so difficult for sure. Just baseline, it's going to be a tough decision. Your agency is your baby. Your agency is your life. It's your everything, running through your veins. So of course you want to make the right hire. So some things to think about. Definitely, number one, we're always going to recommend to write down all of the things you currently do with your agency on a daily, weekly, and monthly basis. So daily, do you want to touch base with clients every day? Are you sending out invoices every day? Probably not, right? But things that you do weekly and things you do monthly, and you can really break down those into different roles quite easily once it's all down in front of you. Next, we want to task out how long each one of these tasks takes. So once you kind of know how long the client account management takes, how long the reporting takes, how long the weekly updates take versus how long the invoicing takes, the billing, or even things like social media and putting everything into, one of those great platforms that helps you schedule out all your posts. You can really break it down into terms of what's your next role. This is taking up a huge chunk of my time, so we need to pivot there. Number 3, you want to star 2 things that you love and you wouldn't want to give up. So that's super important. Are you going to be a controlling financial hover? What do they call parents? A helicopter agency owner, and you're going to be watching over everybody doing those tasks because you just love them so much and you don't want to let them go. It's good to identify those in terms of what brings you joy and what makes your day as an agency owner really special. So the 2 things that you love and wouldn't want to give up. Sometimes it is client account management, right? You want to talk to the clients, you want to interact with people, and sometimes it's media buying. So there's all different ways to identify what you love and don't want to give up.
And I will say, for me in our agency, I do all the finance stuff and I do like it. I do like to see that piece of the puzzle. So you don't have to outsource everything. I think to what Katie said, just identify what the things are that don't bring you joy and that you procrastinate.
Right. And Taylor, I don't want to speak for you, but I do feel like you like having a pulse on those things too, right? Seeing where our efforts are going and how we're growing, because it's always such a great indicator when you see numbers go up and the green get greener, or if the red's getting redder, right? You need to know about that too. So in summary, start the 2 things that you love and that you wouldn't want to give up because it is your business. Don't forget. And you need to do what's good for you and what's going to work moving forward. So the next step of hiring and making that decision is, next to the things you don't love and would prefer to give up, brainstorm on how you could outsource these. So who can you give these tasks to? Does it fall under client account management? Is it VA? Or maybe it's a media buyer, or maybe it's even like a business development piece of the puzzle. So take these ideas, for example, setting up retargeting audiences, is that throwing off your entire day? Maybe a new ad strategist or somebody who can see the bigger picture. Maybe they might do the trick. Or if emailing clients reports is taking way longer than you expected, the answer is obvious. Hire a client account manager, right? We love reporting. We have the perfect templates. We make that super easy and super effective and really efficient. And then think about something like sending invoices. Does that stress you out? It stresses me out, that's for sure. So thank goodness Taylor's here because she's the one finding the joy in that. If sending out the invoices stresses you out, maybe a VA would be your next best hire. Then you're a little more carefree in your business. You're a little happier. You're less stressed. And that's probably just good for your whole team.
Yeah, love it. So To recap this episode, is a virtual assistant for you, a client account manager, what the difference are? Really, the main difference is client account manager is internal and external, whereas we see a virtual assistant more so internal, task-oriented, hourly rate type of employee. Sometimes both are needed, sometimes none.
Both super important. Both those roles are so important when they're right for your agency, right?
Yeah. And then in terms of determining if a VA or a client account manager is for you, write down all the things you're doing. Make sure you're prioritizing the things that bring you joy, they put you in flow, and outsourcing the things that don't. And maybe it's everything in your agency, and that is totally cool. So in the next episode, we're going to talk about who is the next best hire in your agency, which could or could not be a VA, whether they're full-time or a contractor, and how you can train someone or outsource it.
Yeah, I think this podcast idea came from a place of people needing CAM, client account managers, or virtual assistants, right? So just identifying roles and what sets them apart is where this whole idea for this podcast came from. Thank you guys for listening in. If you enjoyed this episode or even got a little nugget of wisdom, please share this on your social media, send it to a friend, and we'd love if you'd rate and subscribe to our podcast. Until next time, cheers to happy clients.